Hello and good morning, everybody. So my name is Helme. I'm the head of research and access at the MS International Federation. And for any of you who don't know who we are, we're a global network of 47 MS organizations, people affected by MS, staff and volunteers from around the world. And I'm speaking to you here today on behalf of many of these MS organizations who were also at this Pathways to Cures Global Summit. You will see several of the staff from these organizations here today. So, as I think you are all aware, in terms of treatment and care for MS, we have come a long way. Relapsing MS has gone from an untreatable disease to one where there are now several approved therapies that can impact the underlying disease process, and they have changed the lives of so many people living with this form of the disease. On this slide, you can see there are 19 approved therapies listed, but many of them are similar in terms of the cells and the molecules they target. And at present, there are 10 novel targets represented by the available disease-modifying therapies. So we have learned a lot from these successes, but also from the many failures that aren't mentioned on this slide about the fundamental nature of relapsing MS. And this knowledge has led to treatments with better effectiveness, and it's likely that the treatment landscape is going to continue to improve for people with relapsing forms of MS in the next years. But as we heard powerfully from Kathy just now, and as we hear from so many people living with and affected by MS today, there are many challenges that we still need to address, and many millions of people across the world looking towards future cures for MS, and what we, as the global MS research community, are doing to make their dreams come true. So we still have work to do to address all the steps in the journey towards cures for MS. For example, the landscape for progressive forms of MS looks quite different to that for relapsing MS, and there are still no approved therapies for people with inactive secondary progressive MS, and only one approved therapy for primary progressive MS. And as we will discuss today and tomorrow, there is much to be tackled still in terms of diagnosing MS early and learning how we may prevent MS from developing in the first place. So why am I speaking to you today on behalf of MS patient organizations? This is because we sit at the boundary between science and society. It's our role to identify those priority areas that are going to make the biggest difference to the lives of people affected by MS around the world, and to ensure there is genuine societal impact from the research that we fund. To do this, we have to set a clear vision and mission and ensure that we are taking a strategic approach to research funding and to collaboration. With over 2.8 million people living with MS worldwide, finding cures for MS is a global problem that is going to need global collaboration to solve it. But of course, collaborating globally is nothing new for the MS community, and the collaborations listed on this slide, many of which will be familiar to you, are just some of the international initiatives in MS that are currently taking place. So as the global MS research community, we are in a very strong position already, but we can do more, and we can accelerate and go further, faster. So where do we go from here? The MS organizations here today have committed to a shared purpose and the establishment of a global research strategy framework for MS. Having a shared strategic intent will encourage better collaboration and alignment of resources on areas of high opportunity for advancing research towards cures for MS. Coordination and alignment between the MS organizations that fund research, which is guided by this shared strategic intent, and underpinned by innovative models of governance, should be what's needed to accelerate progress and lead to an even greater collective impact. But what do we mean by innovative models of governance? This is about moving us away from tokenistic involvement and means taking a scientific approach to research governance, defining in advance the return of investment and engagement of all the different stakeholders that need to be involved, and thus what their role in a research initiative is and their co-responsibility. So on this slide are just a few of the principles that we as MS organizations have agreed to. We are stronger and more focused on solutions when we align our scientific work, now and in the future, and collaborate to address global challenges. We achieve better results for people affected by MS wherever they live in the world when we integrate a globally diverse range of perspectives, talents, and experiences. And we have a shared responsibility to develop a long-term alignment strategy so that we can deliver the vision of Pathways to Cures. So this development of a global research strategy framework to guide Pathways to Cures will aim to complement and align to each organisation's own strategic plans and will describe what can be done collectively and individually. As MS funding organisations, we are already very aligned in terms of our research strategies. And here's just a few examples of research strategies from some of the national MS organisations, which again will be very familiar to many of you in this room. Here we can see some of the priorities from MS Australia and the Italian MS Society, MS Canada and the UK MS Society. And what you should see is that there are common themes around early diagnosis or secondary prevention, understanding progression, better treatments and cures, promoting well-being, and the causes of MS, risk factors, and prevention. So therefore, it's clear why so many MS organisations around the world have endorsed the Pathways to Cures roadmap, because the priorities within it are very similar to those within national research strategies for MS. And going forwards, as national organisations with a shared global research agenda, we are going to continue to communicate and share our national priorities to ensure that we are aligning globally and being able to identify future collaborative opportunities. In addition to exploring these current and future synergies around our research strategies and priorities, we also think it's important to dive deeper into our collective global research investment. Only through doing this will we properly understand alignment around our research investments, how these map onto the Pathways to Cures priorities, where the gaps are, and where specifically there are going to be opportunities for future global collaborations, in line with the priorities we're going to be discussing during this Pathways to Cures Summit. This global landscape assessment is just about to kick off, and we hope to share the findings as soon as they are available. Stepping away from the facts and figures for a moment, another really important thread running through our shared commitment is how we strategically and scientifically involve people affected by MS throughout the research and care continuum. And there are many examples of where this is working well. For example, how the multi-act framework uses the power of science with patient input to guide effective patient engagement. And it has done this through partnering with the International Progressive MS Alliance and the Global PROMS Initiative. Another example is how the recently launched Octopus clinical trial initiative has been co-designed with people with lived experience right from the start. So we will continue to share this best practice across our organizations and really commit to engaging people affected by MS in our research activities, wherever they live in the world and in an inclusive way, because this is essential if we are to speed up progress to achieving the cures that really matter. So as stated into the Pathways to Cures research roadmap that was published last year, we look forward to partnering with other global stakeholders in the MS movement to make the hopes and dreams of people with MS around the world come true. This global summit is helping to realize that vision by bringing together the leaders in the MS movement. We need everyone to be part of a passionate and committed global research community to contribute to the refinement and implementation of the Pathways to Cures agenda, to share the responsibility for growing the spirit of international collaboration and coordination of resources, to help develop a highly motivated and talented research workforce, and to support a dedicated and well-organized global network of activists to speed the development of MS cures. Only then will we be confident in achieving our shared vision of a world free of MS. Thank you.